Hello everyone, I am Ritika and I'm thrilled to kick off our exciting session on 2020X Vision, Q4 winning moves, mastering sales, pipeline, clients and teams for Q4 and beyond. Today we are diving deep into strategies that will propel us towards our 2020X Vision. Before we begin our session, I would request you all to please take a moment to introduce yourself in the comment section below. So, without wasting any time, let's get ready to supercharge your skills, expand your knowledge, and leave actionable strategies to crush your Q4 goals and set stage for an incredible 2028. Over to you, Vishing.
Thank you, Ritika. Thank you so much for this quick introduction and sharing logistics. I would like to also mention that if you have any questions, while Ritika did mention, do share these questions with us. This is the 23rd LinkedIn Live session that we are going to have, and we have 2 more months to go in this quarter. There are going to be much more exciting sessions that we are going to have in the month of November and December. But I'd like to welcome you all formally now as we entered quarter four, the final sprint in the B2B sales marathon for our friends in the US, while it is quarter three for our sales friends in India. Considering the fact that we in India we follow financial year from April to March, but the stake couldn't be higher. Means, uh, I was looking at the research which was shared by Gong, and as per that research, which was shared earlier this year, staggering 80% of companies missed their sales forecast in at least one quarter over the past 2 years. And missing a sales forecast can have a ripple effect. It can damage financials, it can strain operations, stalling growth, and in the worst cases, even leading to layoffs. So imagine running a race with a faulty compass, outdated tools, practices, and untrained sales and marketing teams are leaving many businesses off course, unable to hit their marks. But today is all about breaking that cycle. So think of this session as your opportunity to swap that unreliable compass for a cutting edge GPS, one that can guide you straight to success. You will hear from top industry experts and walk away with actionable strategies to not only finish quarter four strong, but also set yourself up for sustained success in 2025. Also, let me share a quick observation that I had. So, quarter four, especially in B2B ecosystem, is the most busiest quarter. It's a time when the pressure, ramps up. Everyone's chasing those last few deals, trying to close the year on high. In fact, we also tried to bring even more speakers into today's session, but most of them were too busy chasing customers and prospects to make it. But don't get me wrong, our distinguished speakers today are far from facing any customer shortages. They are closed. They have closed actually countless multi-million dollar deals in the world of sales and mastered the art of marketing, making them the perfect gurus to guide us on how to finish strong without the last minute scramble. While many are caught up in the frantic quarter four rush, they are here to share insights on how to wrap up the year smoothly without that nail biting anxiety. And believe me, they know exactly how to get it right. So let me invite my speakers. I have Dennis Roman. He's the founder of Roman Samba and he's a seasoned marketer. He's also a champion on C-level messaging and Wall Street concepts. I have Nelson, who has joined us for the first time. So Nelson brings in 3 decades of sales experience, and he's going to share a lot of insights, especially from the B2B sales world. So let me invite both of them, Dennis and Nelson, to share their opinion on the session that we have today. Dennis, you may like to begin.
Well, thank you very much, Vish and Ritika. Very nice beginning to our session today. I kept thinking about how topical this is for many of us on the call today. I don't know if Ritika or Vish knows the final numbers, but this was a very successful registration for this particular event. So it's clearly timely. And I'm delighted to be having an opportunity to be on the panel. And I got some powerful things, hopefully, that I can share with the audience today. So please stand by. Back to you, Vish.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you so much. Nelson, what do you think about the session today and your first session with us?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Vish, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you from wherever you're joining from the planet. I think it's a great theme to bring up at a very, very appropriate timeline during this entire fiscal. And there couldn't have been a topic more exciting than this, which is why I was delighted when I was given this opportunity to be a part of. And of course, Dennis, I just love. I mean, the way Dennis brings about and uncovers some of those mysterious looking nuggets and simplifies it. So this is going to be fun, guys. So let's stay
Thank you,
tuned.
Nelson. Yeah, it's an opportunity for us as well. Hearing from you since you have spent so many years in sales and business development domain. So yeah, let's. We are looking forward to this session. I'm sure our audience are going to get a lot of great insights from both of you. Dennis has been part of these sessions since the beginning. He has been a primary partner with me. But yeah, we look forward to have you on board for this session. So let me share the flow of the session quickly with the audience. If you look at so this time what we have done is we have kept the session sort of unstructured, not a very rigid structured flow. But what we have done is we are going to cover certain topics, especially from the perspective of breaking sales plateaus, which is how to push through those stubborn barriers and keep your growth momentum going. And then we are going to talk about, have a conversation about robust pipeline, ensuring that you don't just finish the year strong, but I'll start the next one on a solid foundation. We are going to also cover a very critical topic, which is customer churn. And that's where we'll have certain strategies discussed to keep those hard-earned clients loyal and engaged with you. And then last but not least is the team motivation, which is very important. Keeping the morale of the sales team is very critical in order to meet the goals that has been laid out by the business decision makers. But apart from this, if the audience has any other area that they want us to cover, especially from the perspective of Q4 winning moves, do share in the comment box. We'll pick that comment, or even if you have any question for the speakers, do share your question in the comment box, and we'll pick those questions and get answers from our distinguished panel that we have today. All right. So before we begin, let me also share a slide on B2B sales team cheat sheet. This is something which I quickly put together with the help of various content that was available on public domain. And I was just looking at what are those key matrices that sales team would be bothered throughout the year. So when you look at when you are in a lead generation stage, you might be looking at pipeline coverage ratio. And normally there are certain benchmarks. These benchmarks are not carved in stone, but these are more like a rule of thumb. So for SaaS industry, this could be 3x to 4x of quota. And for enterprise tech, it could be 5x of quota. Then in the lead conversion rate, it could be 10 to 20% for SaaS companies, but it could be 5 to 10% for enterprise leads converting to opportunities. That's the kind of threshold that we have seen in the tech world. When we talk about the discovery and engagement and refer to deal stage velocity, SaaS products could take at least 2 to 3 weeks per stage, while enterprise products or enterprise solutions can be up to 4 to 6 weeks per state, but it can be longer. In fact, I have seen enterprise deals going for 6 months or at least a year. When we look at win rate could be 20 to 30%, while for enterprise the win rate could be lesser. It could be 15 to 20%, 25%, because of the complexity of the deals that are involved. Quota attainment is a number which has been tracked by the management as well on a periodic manner. But for SaaS, it's kind of very low, 50 to 60%. I think these numbers are not um, I would say not in line with the numbers that we have seen, but normally quota attainment is somewhere around 80%. Um, Churn rate for enterprise world, it could be 10%, while forecast accuracy is normally around 90 to 95% in the B2B ecosystem. So these are some of the key metrics which I thought I'll share with you before we begin our session on quarter four um, winning moves. Uh, in fact, when I was having a conversation with Nelson, we were when we were preparing for the flow, Nelson did throw a number that if sales rep is not meeting 80% of his commitment or quota by quarter three, then he or she is not likely to meet their goals or meet their annual quota. Let me ask Dennis and Nelson in case if they have any other views, especially on the team cheat sheet, as they have been using these matrices in their engagements with their team members. Nelson, do you have any view?
I think this is a good cheat sheet to begin with, and of course, I have several views around in various aspects of the overall pursuit and the cycle that it follows for different products or services, and we will dwell on that hopefully during the course of this conversation.
Sure.
Hey, Vish, Dennis, can you just explain the footnote here a little bit more about EBSTA and Salesforce Gradient Works? So are these individual sources that you pulled from, and how did you find these particular guys?
Yeah, so in fact, these guys have certain statistics which have been inbuilt in their contents being shared in a public domain. So these are there in at the reports, the annual reports, or the blog articles that they have shared. In fact, some of the speakers have also covered. But these benchmarks are more, these are not perfect benchmarks. I mean, these are good to begin with. These can be used as a rule of thumb, but not basically to be used to assess an individual. I mean, you can use this as a guide, but not for assessment. I mean, it's not an assessment matrix. But yeah, that's what has been talked about, and this is what we have also observed in our experience as part of corporate life. So,
well, if the term "gilding the lily" means anything, I'm not going to even try to contribute anything more to this sheet that you've prepared for us. It's extensive, and thank you for putting that together for us.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you so much. So let me now begin with the questions with those sessions, and let me first invite Dennis. Dennis, how do you see people, especially B2B founders and growth leaders, can prepare themselves from the quarter four rush? What are your thoughts? What are the things that they should keep in mind?
All right, Vish, let me just show a little bit here, if I could. So I wanted to share the good news first. So the good news is there are actually answers to that question. The bad news is there's so many answers that the variety contributes to the problem. All of us have shopped for clothes in our life. Maybe that's not the best example, but I'm going to use that right now. This tends to be more true in ladies' stores, but you can either go to a store and there's 1,000 shirts, or you can go to a store and there's 10 shirts. And both of them have value. Of course, the 10 shirt stores items cost a hell of a lot more, but figuring out which of the ones you want is easy. The store with the 1,000 shirts, they typically each cost a lot less, but trying to figure out which shirt to pick out is almost impossible because there's 1,000 of them. The same concept applies here. There is a control panel, a virtual control panel. That's the good news. There are answers to this question, and I think, Vish, you've hit a live wire, and it goes to the point about why I think so many people registered today, as a matter of fact. So that's the good news. There's a lot of stuff. Okay, but I see the bad news being this. Your boss is talking to you, you didn't make your numbers, and your boss wants you to pull off making your quota by the end of the quarter. And you got to be mature enough to talk to your boss and be able to separate what actually can still happen in the last quarter versus some delusional concept that he or you might have. I think a good example of that would be you should only work on a funnel you got right in front of you, and don't try to close something in Q4 with a client that you've never even spoken to. That might be an example. Or matching each of those strategies to your target companies or the buyers in that company. So there's a lot of strategies. Some will work for one type of company or buyer, and others will work for other ones. And then establish the cadence to start executing, messaging each one so that the result of that messaging, I said ensure, but I really meant force a reaction or a decision, meaning you want your audience to either say yes or no as early as possible. Because if you're going to wait around for all the ones who aren't giving you any kind of an answer, you're going to dissipate your energies in too many areas. Getting your own management to agree and facilitate, and then scoring the funnel to drive decisions and budget. So these are just some of the things that would have to be done in this abstract discussion. And so through the Q&A now, I think we can start talking about how do we accomplish all of this. Back to you, Vish.
Thank you. Thanks, Dennis, for setting this context. I think the metaphor that you used is really great. In fact, that's when you have so many different tools to kind of to navigate with. It's very difficult for any salesperson to reflect and identify, which tool they should begin with. So they may begin with certain approaches, but those approaches may not work. They may need some expert guidance or expert help before they can hit the nail. So that's where let me ask Nelson. Nelson, I shared this certain stats from Gong study where 80% of the organizations not able to meet their quarter forecast. Especially these organizations are from US and UK. So where do you see where are the gaps? Why Q4 is so critical for sales team? Why they are not able to keep the momentum that they have in the quarters from Q1 to Q3? So how do you what are the thoughts that you have, and what would you recommend that these sales teams and founders could adopt?
Sure, Vish. But for that, I'm going to require a day-long answer. It's a very, very fundamentally important point that is being brought up, and I don't think it is a Q4 thing or it's a Q3 thing. I still remember when we started way back 30 years ago on the field. You had a Rolodex and you went knocking on the doors of your customer. You didn't have anything called inside sales, picking up leads and generating leads for you. You went with your bag, you carried your brochures, and then you walked into the offices and found a way to reach the decision maker. And you were in the thick of things at that point in time. Over time, with evolution and with all of this tech stuff that came into picture and play, and we all got very accustomed to having the luxury of someone calling upon someone, making a cold call, and then
Mm,
figuring, oh, this is a potential lead. Now, in all of this, there is one more element of urgency that came in suddenly. Now you're expected to do a lot more
mm,
with less time on hand, right? So people have forgotten the primitive methods of building relationships.
mm,
You must remember and understand, and our audience is here. And most of the audiences, on a lighter note, they would have joined this conversation thinking there is some magic wand that we're going to weave, and while I mean you're going to have the ability to meet your Q4 targets, right? But it's, I would say, something that starts with the sales process.
mm,
Very, very important that you remember the fundamental piece called relationship building. Be with your prospect or customer. Uh, and the other problem associated with that is qualification. Having done
mm,
whatever you did, salespeople tend to have happy years. Oh, somebody smiled at you. Hey, I think that's a great guy. I think I'm going to close some business with this guy. But
mm,
whatever happened to uncovering the compelling reasons to buy from me, or do I even know if they have an urgency to really buy from me, or from anyone else for that matter? And then this beautiful three circle intersection, I often show this during my sales workshops, where you have you, and you have your prospect, and then you have the competitor. um, while I would know what is the USP, or what we call as the value wedge, uh, which I will defend to be able to provide my solution to a prospect or a customer. Uh, do I even know what my competition is up to? So there are a
mm,
whole lot of things, and where you are catching the train on this entire cycle from Dave Curlin in his baseline selling methodology calls it, I mean, synonymous to the baseball game. I mean, the first base, the second base, to the third base, to the home run, right? And so you got to go to the first base first. You got to then go to the second. You can't jump from the first base directly to the third base and then say,
mm,
hey, I think it's a wholly qualified opportunity. So many people tell me, most VPs of sales tell me, Nelson, I have a great pipeline, but they won't close anytime soon. And so when you put them through an MRI, you then begin to figure out where the arteries are clogging, right? So it was either a bad qualification, or you simply didn't drive the customer to build on the urgency, or
mm,
they were simply not committed to make that investment. So there are a
mm,
whole lot of things that go into making it really a good fit for a typical pipeline that you or your organization is going after, right? So
right.
with that said, I think it is of paramount importance with what I started when I started speaking on this, is the sales process.
Mm,
I advise VPs of sales, their managers, and their folks on the field that it is quintessential to remember fundamentals. If you remember fundamentals, the cheat sheet that you showed back then, Vish, talks about at least having 4x of whatever you want to do as
mm,
your pipeline, right? And then you have a method to how much percentage of that should be in prospecting stages, and how much percentage of that should be at wholly qualified, to what percentage of that is in closing, right?
right.
Many people tell me, hey, we are not closing. I mean, it's all done. We have done a great presentation. We have everyone listening to us intently each time we talk to them about our proposition, and they seem to be completely in love with us. But hey,
Hmm.
we won't close anytime soon. And that's the problem. That's the problem. uh, and that happens when you haven't had a very patient conversation with the stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, again, I mean, look how complex sales is, right? I mean, it's
Hmm.
not just about the decision maker. It's not the CEO or his designate. It's the person who is in operations, or the business guys who are equally important and are responsible in the entire decision making process. I'd ask salespeople: is he uh, is that stakeholder kinesthetic, or is an auditory guy, or is he a visual guy? I mean, they look at me as if they've never seen me before. And hey, it's so important to be able to talk to the person in the target organization, depending on his character type. I mean, if he is auditory, he wants to see it. If he's kinesthetic, he wants to touch and feel. And
Hmm.
some people just want to listen to more and more of stories and study case studies, etc., right? So you got to have a great mix of all of these things all through the year. And there's just not one Christmas at the end of the year, but there's one happening every quarter, and one has to prepare at least 2 quarters prior to be able to
Hmm.
meet what's in for the next fiscal, uh, quarter 2, I would say. And you have
Hmm.
to have one eye on the immediate term and the other eye 2 quarters down the line. You don't do this, you it's a sure shot successful failure, right? Let me
Hmm.
say, it's a sure shot successful failure. So yeah, I think I'll pause here, and maybe we'll go around the room.
Yeah, I picked a lot of messages that you shared. So you talked about relationships, you talked about sales process, you talked about tech solution. In fact, recently there are so many AI agents which are coming up, uh, which is which are seen as a team of they can act as a team member to a salesperson. But yes, while we refer to all these elements, um, what is missing now is the product, right? It's product or solution or services. So what strategies do you think from a product or solutions perspective that needs to be reworked, especially for in the last quarter and quarter four? Of course, I've seen many salespeople who uh, have very good relationship with the target audience. They have good cadence with them, but then their point is the product. They are not able to sell
Uh,
that product or solution.
that's a very, very important aspect to bring in. Now, there are two types of customers. There are one set of customers who will hug you and they will love you, and you are the man, right? And they also do the same thing with the competitors. So they're not just with you. They want to carry everyone along. The only thing they're finding difficult is to decide on who is the chosen one. And
Hmm.
that is going to pretty much depend on how much of conviction and how much of confidence you will show, demonstrate them in meetings. I mean, are you shallow, or you are deep enough to be able to talk about everything is to do with the product or the service or the solution? You should
Hmm.
be literally the ambassador. I mean, you should be the person uh, who is probably going to be responsible for her or his next promotion. Do we ever think about it that way? No, we go
Hmm.
very tactical. We look at it very transactionally. We look at a customer's forehead and we look at the number. Oh, this guy's 300K. Oh, this guy's 1.2 mil. This guy's 150K.
Hmm.
That's not the right approach. One has to be aware that there is relationships that are involved. People need to believe and trust in you. My favorite
Hmm.
author, Larry Levine, says selling from the heart. You first establish trust. When you establish trust, and how do you do that? By demonstrating your confidence in what you are going and talking to them about. And
Mm,
remember that today's world is one where the customer knows more than any one of us who are
mm,
walking in with our bag, thinking that we will go and strike a conversation. And hey, I mean, that's not very difficult. But actually, the matter of fact is, you got to tell the customer three things each time you go into that meeting. You tell the customer three things that they did not know about. Now that's
mm,
what I call a great differentiator. And again, there's no Q3 or Q4 phenomena here, right? It's an all through all year round. You don't change your strategies depending on which quarter. Yes, there are wonderful solutions, and Dennis alluded to that. He showed us that Rubik's cube kind of stuff. It's got
mm,
all kinds of buttons and levers there. But again, one can only hope and try. If you're always living in the quarter, in the moment of the quarter, God save
mm,
us.
mm.
I'll
Right.
pause here because yeah, or else like I said, I need a whole day to answer this pertinent question which we started with, right?
I agree. I agree. So let me ask Dennis. Considering the fact that of course, we had a customer view. Now, when you are working with a team, when you're working with certain decision makers within your team, right? You are reporting to a CEO, or you're reporting to a sales team, or sales head, or commercial officer, or so. What? How would you kind of convince, if you are falling short of your quotas? I mean, if you're falling short of the numbers that you're not able to meet in the 3 quarters, and quarter 4 looks like a very stressful for you. So what kind of communication that you should have, or what is, how can you reframe your communication with the internal stakeholders, keeping the momentum live while you are chasing your prospects, your customers, but you need to also ensure that you're meeting the expectations of your internal stakeholders.
Thank you, Vish, and thank you, Nelson, for those insights. We can see, and I'm sure it's a motherhood statement, it's a complex subject. And I
Mm,
think, Vish, the fact that you picked out of the complex subject just the Q4 phenomenon for people who didn't make their numbers yet, but still might be able to. It's true, good behavior should be operating in every quarter. But
mm,
you asked me and Nelson to prepare for a subject that says, I'm a salesperson. It's October or it's January, depending on what part of the world you're in and depending on when the quarters end. How can I make my number if I haven't made it yet? And I'm going to give you two answers to that. A really silly one, which I'm going to bring up as a contrast. And
yeah.
then I'm going to give the most powerful answer to your question that's ever been recorded since the beginning of time. And I feel sincerely about that. Okay, so there's a continuum. On this end of the continuum is the weak answer. You go to your prospects and you say to them, I haven't made my numbers yet. I'm in trouble. Can you help me? Okay, now you may have customers where you could take that decision. You could say that to them. And I hope you do, as a matter of fact. And they may, in fact, be able to amass the budget and help you out.
Mhm.
But that's not the strongest negotiation tactic, right? Where you fall on their mercy and you say, you got to help me out here, or else my kid isn't going to go to college this year if you don't help me out. All right. So that's the rotten one. That's the really, I'm not recommending that, but okay.
Mm,
And as ridiculous as that sounds, this is the other one. And as ridiculous as that is, this is how powerful this is. First, a question for the audience, a virtual question they can answer virtually using their own sense of right and wrong. When I say the words D, C, F, Delta, Charlie, Frank. When I say those words, those letters, what does each audience member think of? What do they hear? They only know if they know what I'm talking about or they don't. So now I'm going to raise it up a bit and say discounted cash flow. Okay, now that I've said that, maybe some more people in the audience have said, oh, yeah, I remember those. We did those in B school. Right, discounted cash flows. Okay. 2 points. One, if you didn't know what I was talking about when I said DCF, that's a red flag. If you knew at least vaguely what I was talking about when I said discounted cash flow, that's a yellow flag. And if you actually know how to do a discounted cash flow, that's a green flag. Good for you. God bless you. But if a red or yellow flag went off in your mind, I'm not sure what Dennis is talking about. I want you to understand this. Nobody you compete against knows how to do it either. If you don't know how to do it, either do they. And if they don't know how to do it and you do or learn, you will jump to the front of the line. Okay, now, and this is only a moment, the discounted cash flow is the strongest evidence and argument you can make as to why somebody should do something now. Its whole purpose is to say, if you invest this money now, that's the future benefit you're going to get. Or in reverse, if you don't do this now, then all those future benefits, whether they're increasing in revenue or decreasing in costs, are going to continuously be pushed into the future. You will have given up 10 grand this month. You will have given up 10 grand next month. You will have, etc. Now, I could go on forever, but I'm not. I just wanted to. I have 100 things to say to people today. So does Nelson. So do you, Vish. Our session today could be 2 hours. We still wouldn't get through it all. I'm going to stop here, and I just want
I just want to add to what you shared.
Yeah,
I would just like to add to what you shared. So, I agree. Means in terms of the numbers, the sales team can work out, the sales rep can work out their numbers, the clients that they are chasing, the prospects they are chasing, and with the help of discounted cash flow, if they can figure out what are the gaps, how they can convert those gaps and advantage for them to convince a decision maker to buy from them. I think that's a strategy that they can certainly deploy, and this is something which is more convincing when you use numbers, when you use when you look at the broader gaps in the business goals, then you can use some of these hooks to kind of build your conversation in a way so as to convince your prospect and customer. But at the same time, what Dennis you mentioned about the internal stakeholders, right? It's kind of challenging to convince internal stakeholders. But I think they should have a strategy in place wherein they can, they should be able to convince their CEO or their sales head in terms of areas where they feel they would be able to close those prospects that they would be able to close, or they have a stronger pipeline. Like I talked about pipeline coverage ratio, so they may refer to the pipeline coverage ratio that they may have to show that they have a stronger pipeline for the quarter. Yeah, sorry, Dennis, you're saying something.
I just didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted this. So if you go in with a discount, let's say the discounted cash flow you did was inaccurate or not suspicious, but it's not as good as it could be. You go into your buyer and you say, here, I've produced this. This is my view. And the buyer goes, well, you have a couple of things here which I don't agree with. Oh, what are those? Let's fix those. So now you and the buyer are working collaboratively to mature your discounted cash flow that he can go take to the decision makers, because that's the language they talk. They don't talk, oh, every vendor's going to tell you this, right? Anyway, that's enough for me.
All right. So, since I also talked about pipeline coverage. So let's move to the next topic, which is how to build
Wish,
a robust
Wish,
pipeline. Yeah,
I
Nelson.
just wanted to, yeah, sorry. I just wanted to add to this and to support Dennis's point of view in terms of what could be done in Q4. Okay, we have been a bad sales guy. You've been not following the process, and you've now landed into this situation. Fortunate, unfortunate, whatever. But I think while it can be very overwhelming to know that we are kind of short on our targets for some reason, and we need to really get back into the act. I think it's a very powerful moment to refocus. And when I say refocus, here are, I think, about two or three key steps that we can take to gain quick traction and see whatever can be done to kind of get back on the track. One is, I would suggest, in the mix of your pipeline, it would be a good idea to prioritize high value prospects. You got to do equal amount of work on all, but it will be great if you can look at high value prospects and prioritize them, because at this stage it's crucial to focus on prospects that have the
Mm,
highest potential to close quickly instead of
mm,
chasing every lead. I think sales reps should review their pipeline and target their warm leads to or existing customers who are likely to convert. And this is where having a solid qualification framework would also help quickly figure out which ones are those. The
mm,
next possibly is creating the urgency. I spoke about urgency. Creating the urgency with borrowing a leaf from what Dennis said, tailored offers. In Q4, time is of essence. So helping prospects realize the urgency of making those decisions is key. And I think
mm,
if you hadn't had that opportunity to drill that urgency into them prior, probably that is where you got to work overtime to be able to underline the urgency. If they don't do this, this is what they are likely to get impacted with. This is what they're likely to have to face if they don't take
mm,
that decision quickly, right? So I think articulating that is very, very critical. And reps should position their solutions as timely opportunities that can help the prospects meet their year end goals as well.
yeah.
I mean, it's more of wearing the hat of the buyer rather than wearing the hat of a seller. I think
Mm,
time and again, very, very crucial point. Always think about the buyer and what exactly is going to work for the buyer, right? So I thought I should bring that point up in this
No, thank you
conversation.
so much. In fact, I wanted to check with you in terms of inducements. Say for if you use certain inducements to kind of gain traction from your prospects. So especially discounts or reworking the pricing. Do you think some of these strategies can work, especially when you are trying to close these prospects? Do you feel that inducement can work more strongly as compared to tying the product with certain urgencies with either
Actually,
macroeconomic or
sure, Wish. Actually, I'm not a believer of doing any discounting when it comes to
Hmm,
putting a proposal on the table for a customer. I'm the last man standing who believes in any form of discounting, because I look at it as a very cheap tactic and reduce your value that you're bringing to the table. And I would rather amplify and try and articulate the value that my solution brings to the table. And in fact,
hmm,
if you ask me, very early on in a pursuit, I insist that the sales rep should be able to figure out, first of all, monetize the cost of the problem that they are facing.
hmm,
So you've gone into the door, you've got the right guys, now you have their attention. Are you comfortable talking to them about the quantification of the problem. Most salespeople don't even they are not even aware of something like this that can be done, right? So you kind of draw the attention of the stakeholders on the buyer side and tell them, hey, I mean, this problem is costing you $1 million, and I have a solution that can cost you maybe $200,000. And that is going to save you your 800K from the 1 mil that you're burning today, right? Most salespeople won't have these conversations. As a result of that, it gets into the blind spot for the buying committee or for the organization to whom you're pitching. In fact, if you might smile at this, but I ask, are you willing to pay me more for what value I will bring to the table, as long as I make a commitment, I make a covenant with you that I will wash off 800K of the burn that you're currently going through. So, or I might even increase that 200K if it is justified enough to say that I will charge you 400K. I mean, I will still save you 600K of burn. I want our sales folks to realize there is so much of power in the palm of their hands when they go and meet the prospect. Do they have the conviction, first of all? And it's buyer beliefs, right? It's about how you, as a buyer, when you go out to buy something, how what kind of a mindset do you possess, right? If you are about discounts, then you are compromising perhaps on the quality of a solution that you're going to buy, right?
There was a study by Gartner, and Gartner mentioned that 70% of the decision makers, they're already aware what solution they would like to purchase, because they might have seen that solution either in public domain, they might have heard it from their peers, or they might have seen that solution working in some sites, or some customers. So of course, this is kind of a challenge when you kind of within that 30% of bracket that you have, in order to convince these decision makers who are already sold off, if they have preferred a competitor's product or solution, then it might be a challenge. But yes, if what you said, if you have those numbers in your palm, if you talk about the burn that they might be having if they are not using your product, if they save certain costs, then that value is a strong driver in itself for them to buy from you.
There is another
So,
complexity. There is another
yeah, okay.
complexity. You might not be just talking. You might just not be talking to one person. There might be 3 or 5, or worse, maybe
Yeah.
12 of them who are part of the decision. I mean, if it is a large deal, and people who will realize there is a situation like this, um, there will be some of them who want to work with you, and there would be somebody in the buying committee who does not want to work with you. Or let me put it the other way, the smarter way. They want to work with your competitor. There are ways and means of handling those dynamics, provided you are aware of this dynamics and you can take control of that, right? If you are a transactional sales guy, there is no way on earth that you will ever be able to tell, and you will come back and enter that opportunity in your CRM, and you will even put an end date to that particular deal, uh, completely unaware of what dynamics are actually at play in that particular pursuit, in that particular organization.
Right. Okay, let me quickly come to the pipeline. Now in quarter 4, you're also a little conscious about the pipeline for next year, because you are ending this year, and you have certain pipeline in place. And there are times when I have seen that when people have met their goals, met their numbers. Earlier, they would not push for more sales in the year. In fact, they would try to keep that those accounts for next year, so that they can, meet their goals, or they can have a greater kind of a benchmarks that they can play with, so that they see promotion for themselves, or they see themselves being seen as a performing team member. So how do you
Right.
see this quarter four, especially from the pipeline perspective? I mean, what are the prospects or accounts they should focus on in quarter four, and how should they manage their pipeline for next year, so that they can have a very strong beginning?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question, Vish. I'm assuming that you're asking this question to me, right?
Yes, to you, to Dennis as well, if he has any views to share. But yeah,
Sure.
please share your insight.
Sure. So I think first and foremost, the fun fact is we are talking about a situation which probably only 7.5 to maybe 8 or 9% of the global sales force is
Mm,
currently in this situation where they have already hit their annual targets. Trust me, I
mm,
mean, there's enough data to back this. And especially, I think Objective Management Group does a great job in assessing a whole lot of salespeople on the planet, and they have some very interesting stats. But coming quickly back to the point, when a sales rep has already hit their annual targets by Q3, Q4 becomes a golden opportunity to set the stage for an
mm,
even stronger next year, right? And here are some of the strategies that I think they should focus on. One is expanding on existing customers where you have great relationships going. There's tremendous amount of trust that has been built. There's phenomenal amount of investment that has gone in. These are your warmest opportunities, your leads, and now is the perfect time to deepen those relationships. Look for cross sell opportunities up. So they're going to be more than happy to
mm,
navigate you to someone else within some other BU and some other department, and then recommend you to them for the great job you did with them early on. So good karma, right? So especially for new solutions that align with their upcoming business needs for the next year, strengthening this
mm,
ties not only will add to the pipeline but will also increase the client retention. I mean, the client will not go away. They won't kind of get defocused from you and walk over to entertain a competitor. I always say this in my sessions: keep the customer, keep your customer so
mm,
engaged, so occupied. Put more and more stuff on their table, share with them nuggets of information that will be valuable for them. They will always come back to you. The other way to put it is, if there is ever a question that the customer has, are you the first guy they will reach out to, or you
mm,
are a me too? That itself tells a lot about what kind of a relationship you have with the customer. And then the second other lever, I would say that a guy who is sitting in such a fantastic situation where he's met his annual numbers by Q3 is prospect for those high value accounts. Remember, your high value accounts, bigger deals, richer, right, and real deals are going to take at least 4 to 6 months from the time you
mm,
start talking and nurturing those opportunities, discussing, uncovering the compelling reasons to buy, look at whether they have deeply their interests in investing in that and whether they're committed to that. And then finally, you kind of go in and then agree with them that we will come up with something compelling that they will
mm,
find it hard to refuse. So, prospecting for high value accounts is the other lever I would think of. And
mm,
yeah, I mean, this might sound a little crazy, but there is always a reason to look at your pipeline time and again. We end up collecting a lot of garbage over a period of time. And most people will associate with this, right? So that's a great time to clean up your pipeline, remove
yeah.
that clutter. It's not worked for 8 months. It's not worked for 12 months. It's unlikely that you're going to ever get traction with those guys. They're busy with some other competitor. Either find a silver bullet, uh, how to beat that, and then get in the front, or I think it's time to purge that row from your CRM, right? So yeah,
No, no. In
that's
fact, so I can also add. So you can use that time to coach your team members, other team members. You can learn a
yeah.
lot from them if you are kind of devoting
Again,
your
I
time
mean,
to them.
again, as a coach,
It's a win-win situation for both of them.
yeah, if I wear the hat of a coach, I would again say that coaching is not a seasonal activity.
Hmm.
Coaching is something that has to be consistently done over the period of time. It is not a one off, it is not a seasonal activity that can be linked with 4 weeks after Christmas, but rather it is something that is a continuum. It should be something that people should take seriously. I call a sales engine like the engine of your car, right? And just like your engine of a car needs to go to the authorized service station for an overhaul once every year, same way the sales engine of an organization needs that overall. They need refreshers. They need certain points that need to be highlighted time and again. You need to go back to fundamentals. And that's the few little points that I would leave behind for today's audiences.
Thank you, Nelson. So I'm going to, we have a couple of comments. I'm going to quickly pick one comment, which is from Madhur. I think it was shared by Ritik earlier. So, Dennis, you are right. I don't think most people in an org other than CFO may know about it, and rarely they use it. But using it with Salesforce gives a food for thought. So, there you go, Dennis. Do you have anything to add here, apart from what Madhur shared?
Well, he obviously underscored the point that this is a lost art, like cooking. Uh, Anyway, it's a lost art. People are not using this tool, and I defy people to come back to me, and I'm welcoming any feedback. Dennis, you're full of hot air. This kind of cash flow can't help figure out the quicker for. What people got to do is go on AI, try one, and then go, man, this works. I can understand how
Yeah.
this would get a guy to say yes. Thank you, Madhu, very much.
We have another very interesting comment that's from Mohit Tandon. A great discussion. Just an additional dimension that quarter four is not only applicable to salesperson but also to the client. If their programs are funded, then it may evaporate if they don't use it. Hence, during prioritization process, do not ignore the intel if the client has approved funds waiting to be utilized this year and the risk they see in non-utilization. So I think that's a great comment. Anything that you'd like to add, Nelson or Dennis?
Absolutely. Mohit is absolutely spot on, right? And I think Dennis and I have spoken about this all year long. It is something you need to tie in, just not in isolation. I would advise back to Mohit. It's about how you map the priorities of the various business units within the organization and the funding
Hmm.
that they have to be able to utilize those more meaningfully rather than just doing something transactional, right? So
Right.
it has to be well thought through, a little early on, along with all the people taken into confidence, so that we all know that we're doing what is right. But absolutely brilliant point. You cannot ignore it for sure. Of course, you cannot ignore it for sure. It has
Yeah.
to be taken
Yeah.
into consideration.
Let me go to
Dennis,
the next.
right?
Let me go to the next comment. So, hi Nelson. You spoke about keeping a lot on the client's table to keep them interested, but how do you ensure that you do not overshare, allowing the client to make a decision then and there, but to share enough to keep them interested to take things forward? Where do you draw the line in terms of sharing your arsenal?
That's a great point from Suviraj, and thanks for asking that question, Suviraj. I think you're absolutely right. You must have spent a lot of years in sales. I can tell. You have to be very careful Yet you have to be very open in whatever you want to share with your customers, right? First step, like I said in the beginning itself, I spoke about trust. Building trust is very critical, and having that relationship is super important. Everything else comes much later, right? So having said that, it is, of course, I call it my little secret. Each time I talk to a customer stakeholder, especially, uh, not really. So if you go across the hierarchy, you definitely will want to keep a little something to yourself, which you can use as a trump card when you kind of have the opportunity to kind of go ahead and amplify that in a larger audience. And yeah, you have to be very careful about. I had this customer. Let me quickly move my camera lens to the other zone, where this customer almost always told me when my competitor walked in and shared some information. And
Mm,
uh, imagine the power of having such relationships, right? I literally get to know what my competitor went and spoke about, what is the USP they pitched for that particular solution. Imagine the power of that, right? So
mm,
if you need to really build those kind of relationships with your customers, knowing that whatever you do is sacrosanct between you and that stakeholder, and
mm,
it's not necessary that you're going to share everything with everyone on the buying committee, not unless you have fully qualified them to be qualified to hug you, or for you to hug them uh, truly from the heart. And
mm,
that is something that you do over a period of time. Salespeople are able to understand that very, very well, and use that lever
mm.
extremely carefully. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Nelson. And thank you, Subiraj, for this question. So we have another comment. We couldn't get a name of this gentleman or person here, but we also don't engage our past customers for warm lead gen. I think that's a good point. Dennis, do you want to share your insights here?
Well, certainly motherhood and apple pie that you should be maintaining a nice working random relationship with your past customers, whether they've moved on. That's another one where they moved on and we don't pay attention to that, not realizing that where they moved to is also a great opportunity to start the sales process again. So it's certainly true that it's a relationship business. And so they should be sticking close. Just because they
Mm.
made some money on a guy, they shouldn't forget about him and just move to the next green field. I think that's a very good point from our LinkedIn
Yeah.
user.
So
You
in
know, there's
fact,
a lot of people on LinkedIn with that name. I've seen that LinkedIn user. You know, it's not a
I
unique
got
name.
no. He shared his name, Satish. Satish
Ah,
Patil.
thank you, Satish.
He's a founder of Canlet.
Canlet.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. From Canlet. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So in
I
fact,
know, Satish very well. Yeah, he's joining us from
so
Pune.
I'd like to add to his point what he shared. So in fact, the when you have your past customers, normally, and this is a program that I worked on. So we built a relationship program for past customers, wherein you have relationship service. You can have CSATs, you can have customer success program as part of that, wherein you build case studies, video testimonials. So leverage your past customers as your advocate, right? So if you have some of these video testimonials or case studies or their bites or quotes that actually work very effectively, especially when you are sharing a pitch to your prospects. So I got this
Actually
point.
many people don't know what magic they can do with their existing customers. I think
Yeah.
testimonials, referrals, recommendations. There is so much you can do with your existing customer. I mean, and it's so powerful, right? I mean, it is such a high cost of acquisition to get a new customer, but how
Yeah.
much we make use of it
Mm.
is a big question mark for me. Actually, not too many
Mm.
salespeople know to use an existing or leverage an existing customer. Sorry, um, uh, to be able to make hay while the sun shines. Yeah.
No, you also made a very good point, especially on the reference program, a referral program. So that work effectively, especially in larger enterprise deals. And these referrals not only from customers, your past customers, but it can be from the analyst or advisor community too. So yeah, that's a referral program is certainly very powerful in that perspective. All right, we are coming to the close of the session. We have a couple of more questions. I actually also wanted to discuss about team morale and team motivation. But considering the paucity of time, we might take this that topic in our subsequent sessions. But I'd like to thank each one of you who joined today. And before you leave, I'd like to also share the next session that we plan to do. Our next session is here. Okay. So our next session is 2020X Vision, selling beyond borders, offshore sales strategies for global markets. So this is primarily considering the fact that expanding business to global developed markets from, especially when you're targeting US, UK, Europe, and APAC, especially from India, then this journey can be very exhausting and can be transformative. You need to use certain transformative programs. So that's where we are going to discuss and brainstorm about some of the offshore sales strategies that can be quickly adopted to acquire customers in global markets. And do join us this session. This session is on 13th of November. It's Wednesday. So do register for this session. It's on LinkedIn currently. And you will also see the registration link in the comments box. But I'd like to thank Nelson and Dennis for joining us in this session. If you have any questions for us, do share your questions or comments to me or Dennis. Our email IDs are here. Maybe Nelson, we forgot to add your email ID. We could have added your email ID as well here, but we could share those details later on. But I'd
Sure.
like to share a huge thank to you and Dennis for sharing incredible insights, and I look forward to our next session. Do join us there. Thank you.
Thank you, Vish and Dennis. It was a pleasure to be on this session with you all today. I really appreciate the time we spent on this session. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
same
you.
here,
Thank you, Nelson.
Nelson. Thank you, Vish. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. Dennis, I remember you had certain slides to share, but considering the paucity of time, so you may probably take those slides later on in our next
Yeah,
subsequent session.
no problem.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.